The alarm bells never stopped ringing on New Geneva Station. Commander Zethkai pressed his scaled hands against the metal table in the war room and watched the red dots move across the star map. Each red dot was a Vorthan ship. Each red dot meant death. "How many ships do they have now?" Zethkai asked. His voice was tired. He had not slept in 3 days. 2,000 and growing, said Captain Jake Miller. The human stood beside the map with his arms crossed. His uniform was clean, but his face looked old. "They keep bringing more ships from their home systems." Ambassador Velnara moved her forearms in a gesture of despair. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear. "We have maybe 300 ships left. Most of them are damaged. Our people are not fighters, Commander. We are traders and builders and teachers. We do not know how to kill." The room fell silent except for the alarms. Through the thick windows they could see Vorthan ships in the distance. The enemy had surrounded the station 3 days ago. They were playing with their food now, like cats with mice. Lieutenant Lisa Barnes looked up from her computer. The young, human woman had dark circles under her eyes. "Sir, I have the reports from the other systems. Kepler Prime fell yesterday. They killed everyone. No prisoners." Zethkai closed his eyes. Kepler Prime had been home to 50 million people. Now it was just empty rocks floating in space. "That makes 6 systems," Jake Miller said. 6 out of 12. Half our people are dead or running. "The Vorthans do not take prisoners," Velnara said. Her voice shook. "They kill everything that moves. Men, women, children. They destroy planets just to watch them burn." The Vorthan Empire had appeared from the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge 6 months ago. Nobody knew where they came from or why they wanted to kill everyone. They just came with their black ships and their plasma weapons and started destroying everything in their path. The Kepler Coalition had tried to fight back. Their ships were fast and their weapons were precise. But the Vorthans did not care about losses. They sent 10 ships to destroy 1 coalition ship. They sent 100 ships to destroy 10. They had so many ships that losing half their fleet meant nothing to them. "We need to talk about surrender," said Admiral Kethron. The old warrior had lost his left arm in the battle for Centauri 7. "Maybe if we give them what they want, they will let some of our people live." "They do not want anything," Zethkai said. "They want us all dead. Every last one of us." Jake Miller walked to the window and looked out at the enemy ships. "My people fought wars like this," he said quietly. "Wars where the enemy wanted to kill everyone. We learned some things about fighting that kind of enemy." "Your people," Velnara said. "The humans. You fight the machine intelligence called the Void Collective. How long has that war lasted?" 30 years, Jake said. 30 years of total war. No prisoners, no mercy, no rest. The machines want to turn every human into spare parts. We want to melt every machine into scrap metal." Lisa Barnes nodded. "My brother died fighting the Void last year. My father died fighting them 10 years ago. My grandfather died in the first battles 30 years ago. That is what total war means. Everyone fights. Everyone dies. No one gives up." The room was quiet again. The coalition races had lived in peace for 200 years before the Vorthans came. They had never seen total war. They did not understand how people could fight for 30 years without stopping. "Captain Miller," Zethkai said slowly, "do you think your people would help us?" Jake Miller turned from the window. His face was hard like stone. "Commander, Earth has been fighting for our lives for 30 years. We have maybe 10 years left before the machines win. Our people are tired and bleeding and dying. But," he paused and looked at the star map, at all the red dots, at all the dead systems. "But we know how to fight total war. We know how to hurt an enemy that thinks it cannot be hurt. We know how to make them afraid. The Coalition Council will never approve it," Admiral Kethron said. "They still think we can find a peaceful solution. They still think we can negotiate with the Vorthans." "The Council is not here," Zethkai said. "The Council is safe on Altair Prime while we die. I am here. My people are here. And we are about to be destroyed." Lisa Barnes looked up from her computer again. "Sir, I am getting a signal from Earth Command. It is for Captain Miller. Jake Miller walked to the communication station. He put on the headset and spoke in the human language called English. The others could not understand the words, but they could hear the tone. It was serious. Important. After 10 minutes, Jake Miller took off the headset. He looked at Zethkai with something new in his eyes. Something dangerous. Commander, Jake said. Earth Command has been watching this war. They know the Vorthons will come for human space next if you fall. They are willing to send help. What kind of help? Belnara asked. The kind of help that wins total wars, Jake said. The 47th Expeditionary Force, 12 ships and 800 soldiers, veterans of the Void War, the hardest fighters humanity has ever produced. Zethkai felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. Small and fragile but real. What do they want in return, he asked. They want you to fight, Jake said. Really fight. No more trying to be civilized, no more worrying about being nice. They want you to learn how to kill your enemies and sleep well afterward. The alarm bells kept ringing. The red dots kept moving on the map. But something had changed. In the room. Something important. Send the message, Zethkai said. Tell your people we accept. Outside the windows, the Vorthon ships waited in the darkness. They thought they had already won. They thought the coalition would surrender or die, quietly like all the others. They were about to learn that some fights are worth winning no matter what it costs. The human ships arrived like ghosts from the void. No lights, no signals. Just 12 dark shapes that appeared on the edge of sensor range and moved toward New Geneva Station with deadly purpose. Commander Zethkai stood in the observation deck and watched them approach. These were not like coalition ships. Coalition vessels were smooth and bright, built to show beauty and peaceful intentions. The human ships looked like they had been through hell and came back asking for more. Those are destroyers, Captain Jake Miller said beside him. The big one in the center is the UES Valkyrie. That is a carrier. She has seen 20 years of combat against the Void Collective. The ships grew larger as they approached. Zethkai could see the scars now. Burn marks from plasma weapons, dents from impacts, patches of different colored metal where repairs had been made in the field. These ships had been built for one purpose only. War. They looked damaged, Ambassador Velnara said. Her voice was worried. They look experienced, Jake Miller corrected. Every mark on those hulls means they survived something that tried to kill them. The lead destroyer docked with the station first. Zethkai watched through the airlock cameras as the human soldiers came aboard. They moved like predators, quick and careful and always watching for danger. The first human through the airlock was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. His uniform was clean but well used. The name tag said Stone, and the rank insignia showed he was a colonel. Commander, Zethkai, Colonel Ryan Stone said. His voice was calm but hard. I am Colonel Stone, commanding officer of the 47th Expeditionary Force. We are here to help you win this war. Welcome to New Geneva Station, Colonel, Zethkai replied. We are grateful for your assistance. Behind Colonel Stone came more humans. A woman with short red hair and dangerous green eyes. Her name tag said Sullivan and she wore the insignia of a major. Then came a man with dark skin and careful hands, who moved like he was used to handling explosives. His name was Rodriguez, and he was a sergeant. This is Major Kate Sullivan, my Special Operations Commander, Colonel Stone said, and Sergeant Tony Rodriguez, Demolition Specialist. More humans filed through the airlock. A young woman with pale skin and sharp eyes who carried a long rifle case. Her name was Amy Chen, and she moved like a hunter. A big man with massive arms who carried a heavy weapons case like it weighed nothing. His name was Lucas Grant. How many Vorthons are we facing? Colonel Stone asked without wasting time on small talk. Approximately 2,000 ships, Zethkai answered. They have us surrounded and are preparing for a final assault. Good, Major Kate Sullivan said. Everyone looked at her in surprise. Surrounded means they cannot run away when we start hurting them. The humans set up their equipment in the main briefing room. Their computers looked different from coalition technology. Harder, more military. Built to work even when everything else was breaking down. Show me their attack patterns, Colonel Stone said. Zethkai activated the holographic display. Red dots showed Vorthan positions. Blue dots showed coalition forces. The red dots outnumbered the blue dots by more than 6 to 1. They attack. In waves, Zethkai explained. Hundreds of ships at once. We destroy some, but they keep coming. They do not care about losses. Swarm tactics, Sergeant Tony Rodriguez said. He was studying the display with professional interest. Classic overwhelming force strategy. Send so many attackers that the defenders cannot kill them all. How do we fight that many ships? Asked Admiral Kethron. Colonel Stone looked at the display for a long time. Then he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You do not fight their ships, he said. You fight their ability to coordinate those ships. You fight their supply lines. You fight their command structure. You make them afraid to leave their safe positions. The Vorthans do not know fear, Velnara said. Every living thing knows fear, Major Kate Sullivan said. Some just need to be reminded. Amy Chen opened her rifle case and began assembling, a weapon that looked like it could punch holes in starship hulls. In the Void War, we learned that machines are predictable. They follow programs, but living enemies can be made to make mistakes. Lucas Grant was unpacking heavy weapons that Zethkai had never seen before. The key is making them react to us, instead of us reacting to them. Your tactics will not work, Admiral Kethron said. We have tried everything. The Vorthans are too many and too strong. Colonel Stone turned to face the Admiral. His blue eyes were like ice. Admiral, with respect, you have tried coalition tactics. You have tried to fight a civilized war against an enemy that does not care about civilization. We fight different kinds of wars. What kinds of wars? Zethkai asked. Dirty wars, Sergeant Tony Rodriguez said. Wars where the only rule is survival. Wars where you use every advantage and exploit every weakness and never stop fighting until your enemy cannot fight back. That is not how we do things, Velnara protested. We are civilized beings. We do not fight dirty. Major Kate Sullivan looked at her with those dangerous green eyes. Ambassador, how civilized will you be when you are dead? The room fell silent. Outside, the Vorthan ships waited in their formations, patient and confident and ready to finish what they had started. Colonel Stone, Zethkai said slowly, what do you need from us? I need you to be willing to learn, Colonel Stone replied. I need you to forget everything you think you know about fighting. I need you to trust us to teach you how to hurt an enemy that thinks it cannot be hurt. And if we refuse? Colonel Stone looked out at the Vorthan fleet. Then you will die with honor and your people will be extinct. But you will have maintained your principles. Zethkai thought about the 6 dead systems, about 50 million people on Kepler Prime who had died maintaining their principles, about the children who would never grow up if the Coalition lost this war. Teach us, he said. Colonel Stone nodded. Major Sullivan, begin reconnaissance operations. I want to know everything about their command ship. Sergeant Rodriguez, start planning demolitions training for their engineers. Corporal Chen, set up sniper training for their best marksmen. Private Grant, work with their heavy weapons teams. The humans moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this before. They had taught other people how to fight dirty wars and win. One more thing, Colonel Stone said to Zethkai. This kind of fighting changes people. Your soldiers will not be the same when this is over. Your civilization will not be the same. Are you prepared for that? Zethkai looked out at the Vorthan ships one more time. Then he looked at his people. At Velnara with her 4 arms and her belief in peace. At Admiral Kethron with his missing arm and his old wounds. At all the Coalition officers who had never wanted to be soldiers. Colonel, he said quietly, we are already changed. The question is whether we will be changed and alive or changed and dead. Colonel Stone smiled again. This time it was not cold. This time it looked almost human. Then let's get to work. The first lesson began at dawn. Colonel Stone gathered 50 Coalition officers in the station's main cargo bay. The space had been cleared of everything except metal crates and training equipment. "War is not about honor," Colonel Stone said. His voice echoed in the large room. "War is not about being fair. War is about making your enemy dead while keeping yourself alive. Everything else is just pretty words." The coalition officers looked uncomfortable. These were beings who had spent their lives building and trading and exploring. They had never thought about killing as a skill to be learned. "But our military codes say we must fight with honor," said Captain Velketh. He was a young Altarian who had graduated from the Coalition Military Academy just 2 years ago. Major Kate Sullivan stepped forward. She was wearing black combat gear and carrying weapons that looked like they had seen serious use. "Captain," she said quietly, "your military codes were written by people who never fought a total war. The Vorthons do not care about your codes. They care about killing you." She activated a holographic display that showed footage from the Kepler Prime battle. Coalition ships moved in perfect formations, following tactical manuals, fighting with precision and honor. The Vorthon ships swarmed over them like insects, ignoring losses, caring only about destruction. "This is what honor gets you, Major," Sullivan said as the Coalition fleet died on the display. "Dead and forgotten." Sergeant Tony Rodriguez walked to the center of the room. He was carrying a metal case that looked dangerous even when closed. "Today we learn about explosives," he said with a grin. "Not the clean explosives you use for mining. War explosives. Explosives designed to kill people and break things." He opened the case. Inside were devices that looked nothing like Coalition demolition charges. These were crude and ugly and built for maximum damage. "The Vorthans send supply convoys through your space," Rodriguez said. "Nice, predictable routes. Perfect for ambushes." A Coalition engineer named Kethmar raised his hand. "Sergeant, those supply routes go through civilian areas. If we attack them, innocent people might be hurt." Rodriguez looked at him with eyes that had seen too much war. "Engineer, how many innocent people are the Vorthons going to kill if we let those supplies reach their battle fleets?" Kethmar had no answer for that. In another part of the station, Corporal Amy Chen was teaching marksmanship. She had set up targets at the end of a long corridor and was showing Coalition soldiers how to use sniper rifles. "Forget what you learned about fair fighting," she said. "A fair fight means your enemy has a chance to kill you. We do not give enemies chances." She demonstrated with her rifle. One shot. The target exploded into pieces. "The Vorthon commanders think they are safe in their command ships," Amy said. "They think they can sit back and watch their soldiers die while they make plans. We are going to teach them differently." Private Lucas Grant was in the heavy weapons training area with Coalition gunners. He was showing them weapons that could punch through starship armor. "Your weapons are built to disable enemy ships," he said, "to give them a chance to surrender. These weapons are built to destroy enemy ships completely." A Coalition gunner named Zalhan looked at the massive human weapon with worry. "Private Grant, these weapons will vaporize entire crews. Is that not excessive?" Lucas Grant looked at him with tired eyes. "Gunner, excessive is what the Vorthans did to Kepler Prime. Excessive is 50 million dead civilians. This is just effective." The training continued for days. Coalition soldiers learned to move quietly through their own ships, setting traps and ambushes. They learned to fake surrender and then attack when the enemy came close. They learned to target command vessels first, supply ships second, and battleships last. Major Sullivan taught them about psychological warfare, how to make the enemy afraid, how to make them make mistakes, how to turn their own tactics against them. "Fear is a weapon," she said. "Use it correctly, and you can defeat enemies twice your size." The Coalition officers were changing. They moved differently now. They thought differently. The polite, civilized beings who had started training were becoming something harder. On the 5th day, they had their first real test. A Vorthon supply convoy was moving through the Rigel system. 12 cargo ships protected by 20 fighters. In the old days, the Coalition would have sent a fleet to engage them in open battle. Instead, they sent 3 ships loaded with Coalition soldiers who had learned human tactics. Captain Velketh commanded the operation. He had been the one who questioned fighting without honor. Now he was about to test everything he had learned. "Remember," Colonel Stone said over the radio, "you are not trying to defeat them in fair combat. You are trying to destroy them completely." 3. Coalition ships approached the convoy using civilian transponder codes. The Vorthons thought they were seeing refugee ships trying to escape the war zone. When the coalition ships were close enough, they dropped their disguises and attacked. But this was not the kind of attack the Vorthons expected. Instead of engaging the escort fighters, the coalition ships ignored them completely and went straight for the cargo vessels. Amy Chen's trained snipers used long-range weapons to destroy the cargo ship bridges from impossible distances. Tony Rodriguez's students detonated explosives they had somehow placed on the cargo ships days earlier. Lucas Grant's heavy weapons teams fired through the cargo holds, destroying supplies and equipment. The Vorthon escort fighters tried to respond, but they had been trained to protect against frontal attacks, not this kind of surgical destruction. In 15 minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. All 12 cargo ships were gone. Half the escort fighters were dead. The rest fled in confusion. The coalition had not lost a single ship. "Well done," Colonel Stone said when the strike team returned. "You are beginning to understand." But the real change was in the coalition soldiers themselves. They had killed enemy crews without giving them a chance to surrender. They had destroyed unarmed cargo ships. They had used deception and surprise instead of honor and fairness. And they had won. "This does not feel like victory," Captain Velketh said quietly. Major Sullivan looked at him with understanding in her green eyes. "Captain, clean victories are for people who can afford to lose. You cannot afford to lose. What have we become?" asked Engineer Kethmar. Colonel Stone answered, "You have become soldiers. Real soldiers. The kind who win wars instead of dying heroically." That night, the coalition officers sat in their quarters and thought about what they had done. Some felt proud. Some felt ashamed. All of them felt different. Outside, the Vorthon fleet was larger than ever. But something had changed. For the first time since the war began, the Vorthons had lost something they had not expected to lose. And in the command centers of the Vorthon ships, generals who had never known defeat were beginning to ask questions they had never asked before. What kind of enemy were they really fighting? 3 weeks after the first convoy attack, the war changed completely. Colonel Stone stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, watching as reports came in from across the galaxy. Green lights showed successful operations. Red lights showed Vorthon losses. For the first time in months, there were more green lights than red ones. "Operation Nightmare is working," Major Kate Sullivan reported. She looked tired, but satisfied. "We have hit targets in 3 systems simultaneously. The Vorthons do not know where to send reinforcements." Commander Zethkai studied the tactical display with new eyes. He no longer saw the Vorthon fleet as an unstoppable force. He saw weak points, supply lines, command structures, targets. "Their response time is getting slower," he observed. "They are becoming confused." "Good," Colonel Stone said. "Confusion leads to mistakes. Mistakes lead to defeats." In the Arcturus system, Corporal Amy Chen lay motionless on an asteroid 2 million kilometers from the Vorthon command ship. She had been waiting for 6 hours, watching through her scope as enemy officers moved around the bridge. Her target was General Kethvar, the Vorthon fleet commander. He was standing near a large window, probably feeling safe behind the shields and armor of his flagship. Amy adjusted her breathing and squeezed the trigger. The shot traveled across empty space. At the speed of light, it punched through the command ship's shields like they were made of paper. The specially designed round exploded inside the bridge, killing the general and half his staff. "Target eliminated," Amy reported quietly into her radio. "Command ship is in chaos." 2 hours later, the entire Vorthon fleet in that system began retreating. Without their commander, they did not know what to do. In the Vega system, Sergeant Tony Rodriguez was leading a team of coalition engineers through the maintenance tunnels of a captured space station. The Vorthons had taken the station 3 months ago and turned it into a major supply depot. "Remember," Tony whispered to his team, "we are not here to fight guards. We are here to destroy their supplies and get out." The team moved like ghosts through the station. Tony had taught them to think like explosives experts instead of soldiers. Every fuel tank was a bomb waiting to happen. Every ammunition storage room was a target. Every power conduit was a weakness. They planted their charges carefully and silently, small devices that looked harmless but would cause massive chain reactions. By the time anyone noticed them, it would be too late. 20 minutes later, they were back on their ship and jumping to hyperspace. Behind them, the space station exploded in a fireball that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Millions of tons of supplies were destroyed. The Vorthon offensive in that sector stopped completely. "Another supply depot gone," Tony reported, with satisfaction. "The Vorthons are going to start running out of ammunition soon." In the Centauri system, Private Lucas Grant was working with a coalition heavy weapons team to destroy a Vorthon repair facility. The facility was hidden inside an asteroid field and protected by automated defense systems. "Their shields are too strong for a direct assault," said Gunnar Zalhan. He had changed a lot since the training began. His eyes were harder now, more focused. "Then we do not assault directly," Lucas replied. "We make them come to us." They used one coalition ship as bait, pretending to be damaged and requesting assistance. The Vorthon defenders came out to investigate, thinking they had found easy prey. Instead, they found Lucas Grant waiting with weapons that could destroy battleships. The coalition heavy weapons team had learned to coordinate their fire, concentrating their shots on single targets instead of spreading them around. The Vorthon defense fleet was destroyed in minutes. The repair facility was defenseless. Lucas and his team methodically destroyed every piece of equipment, every repair dock, every spare part. "Repair facility eliminated," Lucas reported. "The Vorthons in this sector will not be fixing their damaged ships anytime soon." But the most important victory happened in the Kepler system, where Major Kate Sullivan led a special operations mission that nobody talked about afterward. She had infiltrated the main Vorthon communication hub with a team of coalition volunteers who had learned to move and think like human special forces. Their mission was not to destroy the facility, it was to corrupt it. "Information warfare," Kate had explained during the briefing. "We are going to make them afraid of their own shadows." The team spent 3 days inside the Vorthon facility, carefully altering communication protocols and planting false information. They made it look like coalition forces were much larger than they actually were. They created fake reports of human reinforcements that did not exist. They spread rumors about new coalition superweapons. Most importantly, they made it appear that the coalition had infiltrated Vorthon command structures throughout the galaxy. When the team escaped, they left, behind a communication network that would spread fear and doubt throughout the Vorthon Empire. Every message would carry a little poison. Every report would contain a little lie. Within days, Vorthon commanders were receiving contradictory orders. Some were told to advance. Others were told to retreat. Some were warned about coalition spies in their own ranks. Others were ordered to trust no one. The Vorthon Empire, which had conquered through unity and overwhelming force, began to tear itself apart from within. "Their fleet movements are becoming erratic," Commander Zethkai observed as he watched the tactical display. "They are starting to fight each other instead of us." "Fear is spreading through their ranks," Colonel Stone said with approval. "They no longer trust their own command structure." The change in the coalition forces was just as dramatic. The polite, civilized officers who had started training months ago were gone. In their place were hard-eyed warriors who spoke in terms of acceptable losses and tactical advantages. Captain Velketh had become a master of ambush tactics. Engineer Kethmar now designed weapons instead of buildings. Gunnar Zalhan could destroy enemy ships with cold precision. They still felt uncomfortable with what they had become, but they no longer questioned whether it was necessary. "We captured a Vorthon general during the Rigel operation," Major Sullivan reported during the daily briefing. "I interrogated him personally." "What did you learn?" asked Zethkai. "The Vorthons have never faced sustained resistance before," Kate replied. "Every species they have encountered either surrendered immediately or was destroyed quickly. They do not know how to fight a long war against an enemy that fights back." They are used to being the hunters, Colonel Stone added. Now they are learning what it feels like to be hunted. The numbers on the tactical display told the story. Vorthon forces had stopped advancing. Some sectors were actually retreating. Supply lines were disrupted. Command structures were compromised. Morale was falling. The coalition was winning, but victory came with a price. The coalition officers looked at themselves in mirrors and saw strangers. They had become the kind of people they used to fear. Efficient killers who could destroy their enemies without hesitation. Are we still the good side in this war? Captain, Velketh asked during a quiet moment. Colonel Stone looked at him with understanding. Captain, there are no good sides in total war. There are only sides that survive and sides that do not. The question is what you do after you survive. Outside the station, the Vorthon fleet was still there, but it was no longer the confident, overwhelming force that had arrived months ago. The ship stayed in defensive formations. The commanders issued cautious orders. The soldiers looked over their shoulders, afraid of what might be hunting them in the darkness. The hunters had become the hunted. The predators had become the prey, and in the command centers of a dozen star systems, coalition officers who had learned to think like humans began planning the final phase of the war. The final battle began at dawn on the 6th month of the war. The combined coalition and human fleet hung in space above Vorthon Prime, the enemy homeworld. 300 ships faced the last stronghold of an empire that had once seemed unstoppable. Commander Zethkai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet below. 6 months ago, he would have felt sick at the thought of attacking a homeworld. Now he felt only the cold calculation of a warrior planning victory. All ships report ready, he said into his communicator. His voice was steady and hard. The frightened, desperate commander who had called for human help was gone. In his place stood someone who understood that sometimes peace could only be won through total war. Remember the plan. Colonel Stone's voice came through the radio from the human carrier. We hit their orbital defenses first. Then we take out their command bunkers. Then we make them surrender. The Vorthon defenders had gathered everything they had left. 500 ships and a planetary defense grid that could destroy small moons. In the old days, it would have been suicide to attack such a position. But these were not the old days, and this was not the old coalition. Major Sullivan, Zethkai called. Begin your operation. Far below on the planet's surface, Kate Sullivan and her team of coalition special forces were already in position. They had infiltrated the planet weeks ago, using skills that no coalition soldier had possessed 6 months earlier. Charges are set on the primary defense grid, Kate reported through her encrypted radio. Ready to disable their shields on your command. She looked at the coalition soldiers with her. They moved like ghosts and thought like predators. The transformation was complete. These were no longer peaceful beings pretending to be warriors. They were warriors who had once been peaceful. Corporal Chen, Zethkai continued. Are your targets acquired? Amy Chen lay on a mountainside 50 kilometers from the Vorthon Command Center. Through her scope, she could see the bunker where the Vorthon High Command was meeting an emergency session. I have clear shots on the 3 main entrances, she reported. No one gets in or out of that bunker without my permission. Beside, her 3 coalition snipers trained by her methods waited with their own weapons. They had learned patience and precision, and the cold mathematics of death. Sergeant Rodriguez, Zethkai called. Report status. Tony Rodriguez was in the industrial sector of the Vorthon capital city, surrounded by factories that produced weapons and ammunition for the Empire. His coalition engineering teams had spent days turning those factories into elaborate traps. Every major production facility is wired, Tony reported with satisfaction. When I give the word, half their industrial base disappears. Private Grant, Zethkai said. Are you ready? Lucas Grant was aboard the coalition heavy weapons platform that had once been a peaceful cargo vessel. Now it carried enough firepower to level a small city. All guns charged and ready, Lucas replied. Just point me at something that needs to be broken. The battle began with Kate Sullivan's signal. The planetary defense grid went dark as her charges destroyed the main power generators. The shields that had protected Vorthon Prime for 1,000 years flickered and died. Amy Chen fired 3 times in rapid succession. The Vorthan command bunker was sealed shut, trapping the enemy leadership inside while eliminating their ability to coordinate. The defense. Tony Rodriguez pressed a single button. Across the planet, factories exploded in carefully planned chain reactions. The Vorthan war machine began destroying itself from within. Then the real assault began. The Coalition fleet, using tactics learned from humans, did not try to fight the fourth-hand defenders in honorable combat. Instead, they used every dirty trick that months of training had taught them. Some ships pretended to be damaged and retreating, luring Vorthan vessels into traps. Others used civilian transponder codes to get close before revealing hidden weapons. Still others simply ignored enemy ships completely and headed straight for high-value targets. Lucas Grant's heavy weapons platform tore through Vorthan defensive positions like they were made of paper. The Coalition gunners had learned to concentrate their fire, destroying enemies completely instead of trying to disable them. Orbital defense platform destroyed, reported Gunner Zalhan. His voice showed no emotion. 6 months of war had taught him that mercy was a luxury they could not afford. The battle raged for 6 hours, but it was not the kind of battle the Vorthans expected. They had prepared for an honorable fight between fleets. Instead, they got surgical strikes, psychological warfare, and coordinated attacks on their most vulnerable points. By noon, the Vorthan fleet was in full retreat. By evening, their planetary government was requesting negotiations. They want to surrender, Ambassador Velnara reported from the communication station. Her 4 arms shook as she read the message. After 6 months of total war, the concept of enemy surrender seemed strange. Unconditional surrender, Colonel Stone said firmly. Complete demobilization of their military, reparations for the systems they destroyed, war crimes, trials for their leadership. The Vorthan response came, quickly. They agreed to everything. The war was over, but victory felt different than anyone had expected. That night, the Coalition officers gathered in the main briefing room of New Geneva Station. The room where they had first met the humans. The room where they had made the decision to abandon their principles in order to survive. We won, Captain Velketh said quietly. But he did not sound happy about it. Yes, Commander Zethkai replied. We won. But look what we became in order to win. The transformation was visible in all of them. They moved like soldiers now. They thought in terms of tactical advantages and acceptable losses. They could kill without hesitation and sleep without nightmares. Is this what victory always costs? Asked Engineer Kethmar. Colonel Stone looked around the room at the Coalition, officers who had become his students. Sometimes, he said, the price of survival is becoming something you never wanted to be. And was it worth it? Velnara asked. Before anyone could answer, a new report came in. Intelligence from the outer rim. 3 different peaceful species had contacted the Coalition, asking for protection against other aggressive empires. Word of the Coalition's victory over the Vorthans had spread quickly. The galaxy knows what you have become, Major Kate Sullivan said. You are no longer seen as easy prey. Other predators will think twice before attacking Coalition space. So, we have become the thing we once feared, Zethkai said. A military power that others fear. You have become survivors, Colonel Stone corrected. And sometimes being feared is the only way to protect the things you love. 6 months later, the human ships prepared to depart. The Void Collective was still fighting on the other side of the galaxy, and the 47th Expeditionary Force was needed. Back home, Amy Chen finished training the last class of Coalition snipers. Tony Rodriguez handed over his demolitions manuals to Coalition engineers. Lucas Grant showed Coalition gunners how to maintain the heavy weapons they had learned to use so well. Will we see you again? Commander Zethkai asked Colonel Stone, as they stood in the same docking bay where the humans had first arrived. Maybe, Colonel Stone replied. If you are lucky, you will never need to see us again. If you are unlucky, we will come when you call. Major Kate Sullivan looked around at the Coalition officers who had become her students. Remember what we taught you, she said, but do not let it consume you. Use these skills to protect your people. not to become like the enemies you fought. The human ships departed as quietly as they had arrived, dark shapes disappearing into the void, carrying their scars and their knowledge to the next war. The coalition was left alone with their victory and their transformation. Commander Zethkai stood in his office looking at star charts and planning the future. The coalition military was now one of the most feared forces in the galaxy. Other species asked for their protection. Former enemies requested peace treaties. But sometimes, late at night, he remembered what they had been before the war. Peaceful, traders and builders and explorers who had never wanted to hurt anyone. Those people were gone forever. In their place were warriors who could protect the galaxy from the things that lived in the dark spaces between the stars. It was not the future they had planned, but it was the future they had earned, and in the end, that was enough.